Welcome back to the Find Your Peace podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about if you are someone who has a loved one in your life that struggles with anxiety or dysregulation, and how you can help, how you can be a supporting person in their life. And I want to start by saying that it's not your job to fix it by any means, but there are definitely things that you can do as a support person that can promote feelings of safety. And that's what dysregulation and anxiety are, is that they're feeling unsafe in either their spirit, soul, or body. And it doesn't always have to mean physically unsafe. Sometimes the way that they internalize things, the way they've taken on things, that they were raised, their internal monologue, they have wounding, all of those things can contribute. And my mission in this podcast is teach people how to live from a place of being regulated, how some of the things that they're doing are promoting that spiral of anxiety, that spiral of panic, and just living dysregulated. So my mission is to undo that. But as I was preparing some other sessions that I was getting ready to record, I really felt like, what if there was a guidebook for people that loved someone with anxiety, either a spouse or your family member, like your kids? And what can you do to make sure that you're creating an environment and supporting them the best way that you know how, to make sure that you're supporting and not adding to the problem? And do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's your fault, but there are things that we can do as people residing alongside of them that can promote safety and feelings of unsafety, to be quite frank. So, today we are going to just talk through ways that you can be a supportive loved one of somebody that's struggling. So, I want to reiterate that this feeling of unsafety sometimes comes from trauma, sometimes comes from the way they internalize things, their inner voice, their inner dialogue, wounding, how they were taught, just by modeling. All of these things can contribute. So, someone can have one or all of them. But the best thing that we can do is allow them to feel safe emotionally, physically, and just allowing them to be who they genuinely are. Sometimes, especially kids, feel like they have to mold themselves to become the person that their parents want them to be, even when their parents aren't doing it on purpose. We're kind of dealing with that in our household right now. We have one child that's getting ready to become a senior and realize maybe some of the choices that he was making, he was doing to please us. Even though we'd never put any pressure, at least we thought we hadn't put any pressure on those choices, but just wanting to please us. And so we've made sure that he knows that this is your life. Like, yes, we want the best for you. We're going to pray for you. We're going to champion you, but you don't have to do things that we did just because we did them or you think we want you to do them. It needs to be what you want to do and what the Lord's called you to do. And I just want to reiterate that it is not your job to fix your loved one's anxiety. All we're trying to do is love them the very best we can and make sure we're promoting those feelings of safety in every aspect of their life. So this is going to look different depending on how close you are to this person. If it's your spouse or your kids, you're obviously interacting with them on a very regular basis. And so there's lots of things that you can do. If it's a friend, or maybe you're an adult and you have a mom or a dad or a sibling that really struggles, it's going to look a little bit different than someone that's residing within your home. But regardless, there's ways that you can love them well. So that's what we're going to get into today. So if it's a romantic partner of any kind, one thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you're not unknowingly contributing to feelings of unsafety. So, can this look like? This can look like dismissing feelings when they try to talk to you about something that feels important, saying things like, that's not that big of a deal, or why do you keep worrying about that? Just get over it. Feelings are valid, even if they're coming from a place of wounding. And so getting curious about that emotion, if your partner comes to you and tells you that something that you're doing is contributing, just allowing curiosity to come into the conversations versus defensiveness. Because defensiveness is oftentimes, if somebody's been raised in a home where there's been trauma or anything like that, defensiveness feels like they're being attacked. So asking them questions like, um, what makes you feel most loved? And if somebody's had a long history of trauma, if somebody's had a long history of anxiety, they might not be able to answer this right away. And so if they can't answer that right away, just say, well, what was one time that I made you feel loved? And they'll be able to start unwinding and articulate ways that they felt loved. Another question that you can ask is, what makes you feel heard? What makes you feel like your voice matters and that I'm making you feel like I'm hearing what you're saying, not just listening to respond? Because that can happen as well when there's a disagreement or a struggle, or your partner is coming to you with something that looks like a criticism. Um, just hearing them and understanding what they're saying. Oftentimes, it is coming from a place of being a wound. And so it might not make sense to you if you don't have the same trauma or background, but just creating a space where they feel really, really heard is going to help promote feelings of safety. Asking them when they feel the safest. Um, this can look like when they're being held, when they're being hugged, when you're holding my hand, when you do things for me without being asked. Maybe you fill waters before bed. Maybe you cook dinner without being asked. Maybe you just take on the laundry without being asked. Things like that often make somebody feel taken care of, and taken care of can promote feelings of safety, especially if they were raised in an environment where the hyper independence was absolutely essential for survival. And so they've never had someone do those things for them. That can really help promote feelings of safety. The last question is, how can I help? Especially if you can see there's a trigger happening, maybe emotions are heightened and something, even if it has nothing to do with you, has triggered a reaction. How can I help is the best way to respond, not calm down, not why do you always get so upset over all these things. Anything that promotes just that place of curiosity, how can I help? Now, that doesn't mean that you take on the problem, right? They have to give instructions because you want them to own a little bit of it, but how can I help? This is something that my husband has mastered because I have come a very, very long way in my own anxiety struggles and struggles of dysregulation, but that doesn't mean that I'm perfect, right? And um, because most of my adult life, I lived dysregulated, I see some patterns in one of my children. And so I've had to really unlearn and create this environment of safety for my own kids because I was broken. I was wounded before, and I've repented for that, and I've asked for forgiveness, and I've done the best I can to grow. But some things are learned, right? So I just want to reiterate, listen from a place of curiosity and not defensiveness. Listen to understand, and do not dismiss or tell them to look on the bright side or tell them to just get over it. That is probably the worst way that a response can come through. The next area of things that you can do, when you personally are angry or upset, I highly recommend finding a way to regulate your own emotions before addressing them. So even if your conflict isn't with your loved one with anxiety, being in their presence when you are dysregulated, if someone's been raised in trauma or just an unhealthy household, they can feel and sense the second that you're dysregulated, and they're going to think it's about them. They just automatically are. They're going to think it's about them. And so finding a way to regulate your own emotions before, if the problem is with them, especially before you deal with them. But if it's like work or school or something else outside of your home, find a way to deal with it and don't take it out on your loved one. Don't allow them to see you venting or, being angry about it, because they are going to immediately think it's about them. And so finding another person or resource that can help you regulate before you enter their presence is the best. Obviously, that's not always going to happen, but something that can happen in my home. I was raised in such a place of fear. Fear was such a present emotion in my home. Um, Whenever my husband would get upset or angry, usually having to do with like house projects or something blaming around the house, I would get so dysregulated trying to fix his emotion that it would spiral me into dysregulation. And we've both had to work on that and make sure that we are not taking anything out on the other partner. We both know it's not our jobs to fix the other one, but we can react differently in those heated moments. Okay. This next one applies to any relationship in your life. It's obviously going to be different if it's your loved one in your home, like your spouse or your kids. So safe and healthy, non-sexual touch if it's your spouse. So what do I mean by that? Um, Touch can help regulation when there's no expectation attached to it. So there's free nerve endings in our fascia, and they create um, co-regulations of feeling of safety when they're rubbed, when they're touched. That's actually a chemical reaction that happens in the cortex of the brain. So rubbing someone's back, rubbing someone's arms, giving them a nice hug, uh, can all be ways to promote regulation. Now, the parameters around this. Do not try to turn it into something sexual if it's your spouse. When you're regulating, you are just doing it to pour into them and help them co-regulate. When there's an expectation attached, bodies brace and they shut down, and that's actually promotes the feeling of unsafety. So if you're married and you're only touching your spouse when you're trying to escalate into something sexual, know that that's can be an extreme area of unsafety. So making it a habit of rubbing their back, rubbing their shoulders, giving hugs without trying to turn it into anything, brushing their hair, all of these things can promote feelings of safety. And then escalating anything sexual needs to be outside of that window. Okay? Because a connected, well-loved person will be open to that. If that's a struggle within your marriage, this is an area that you could take a look. Because oftentimes when we struggle with anxiety and feel like everyone wants something from us, this is just another avenue that we feel like we have to perform, or we feel like a little bit unsafe. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that, every partner who has a partner that struggles with anxiety is like a predator or anything like that. I'm saying safety is the number one. They need to feel safe. They need to feel relaxed in their environment and not have the expectation that it has to turn sexual. Hopefully that's coming across the correct way. Okay, kids. Kids can be so easy to regulate. They need emotional connection and physical connection before they can articulate any feelings. So if you have a child that struggles with anxiety and maybe is dysregulated on a regular basis, I'm actually going to do a whole episode on this. That one's coming, but here's some small ways that you can help them regulate. Hugs. Hugs are fantastic. You want to hug them with your full chest. However, if somebody doesn't want to be hugged, do not force them to hug. That actually creates feelings of unsafety, especially if there's trauma. So that actually goes for your spouse or any loved ones, really. If somebody doesn't want to hug and they say no, you absolutely need to respect it. If there's been physical abuse, if there's been sexual abuse, know that their boundaries have been so violated that in order to create new ones again, they need to be heard each and every single time they say no. So know that that's really important, especially with extended family. A lot of times, we were raised to believe that we had to hug everybody because they wanted a hug. But kids don't know a lot of these people and don't feel safe hugging them. And so I highly encourage you not to force your kids to hug or kiss or do anything with anybody that they don't want to, because that's how they learn body boundaries. But I digress. Okay. Dry brushing or hair brushing. Your child gently can create that same co-regulation feeling that you can get by just rubbing their back or their neck. Laying hands on them in prayer, that's always going to shift the environment a little bit. A face massage, scalp, jaw, ears, just very gently, especially on kids. If it's your spouse, obviously you can go a little bit deeper, but there's nerve endings all within the face that can move your body from one unregulated state to a regulated state, from sympathetic to parasympathetic when we're talking about the nervous system. That can instantly bring a dysregulated person down and create feelings of regulation. That's why so many kids ask for their back rubbed or you to lay with them before bed, is because that's co-regulation. That's feelings of safety. That's a connection that you're building that can't be taken away. Another thing that you can do is lay with a large pillow underneath your diaphragm. So your diaphragm is located on your left side of your body, right underneath your rib cage. And especially when kids are really dysregulated, maybe they're crying or throwing a fit or anything like that. A great way to regulate is to just lay on a pillow right on that diaphragm. I have a large pillow that I'll link in the show notes. It's my favorite. Just a little bit firmer and just can kind of create just a way to break up some of that fascia that can get stuck in our diaphragm when we're dysregulated. And so that can have long-term results, because if our fascia is holding on to fascia in our diaphragm is holding on to any tension, kids struggle to regulate. They struggle to fully breathe deeply. And when we're shallow breathing, that keeps us a little bit more dysregulated on a regular basis. So that can have long-term results just by allowing that child to lay on that pillow. And oftentimes they like it. They think it's kind of fun to just get to lay on a pillow. So other simple actions that you can do with pretty much anyone that you love that's maybe struggling with some anxiety, just some easy tasks that you can do. If you tell a loved one that you are going to do something, whether it's a house project, you're going to take care of a chore, maybe picking up a birthday gift for somebody on the list, whatever it is, follow through. That is how feelings of trust continue to grow, is when you actually do what you say you're going to do. Because when a person with anxiety struggles to trust, and you break little promises or things that you say you're going to do, that just creates more feelings of unsafety. So that might sound really silly, but that's actually one of the quickest ways to build trust, is to follow through with the things that you say that you're going to do. Some other things that you can easily do. Sunlight is super helpful in regulation, and so is movement. So asking a loved one to go for a walk. And this can happen when they're dysregulated, but it can also happen when maybe they're not in a state of dysregulation, they're not in a state of anxiety. The more sunlight and movement that you do, the less anxiety will exist, as they're learning some of these other concepts that I talk about on my podcast, the way they're internalizing, the way they're taking things on, all of those things. Your job is to be a loving support person alongside of them in this journey. When conflict arises or they're dysregulated, just being curious and not being defensive. We talked about this already, but I can't stress enough how much that can be a game changer in a home. Promoting habits of good sleep. So, turning screens off before bed, rubbing a loved one's back before bed, playing gentle music, praying over them before bed. All great ways to promote good sleep because disrupted sleep creates havoc on the nervous system. Connection. Being present when you're with them, asking questions and listening to the answers, not just listening to be heard, really wanting to know about them, not just asking, how was your day? What was your favorite thing that happened today? Get really curious and create areas of connection. Oftentimes, when I pick up just my one son, because my other one can drive from school, instead of saying, how was your day? I will say, tell me something good that happened today. And that just changes it from if I just say, how was your day? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing, right? Tell me something good that happened today. That creates connection. And so that's something I'm working on all of the time. Promoting a high fiber diet and a nourishing diet. So, if this is someone you live with, making sure that you're having lots of colorful food on your plates, limiting processed food, things like that. Proper hydration. This is where, filling a water bottle before bed or, bringing someone a glass of water without being asked, like all loving things that you can do that just help support a regulated nervous system. Strength training. So if it's someone that you can, really encourage to go to the gym with you and just get some movement. The more movement we do, the more regulated our bodies are. Dancing, especially worship. I know you used to use this all the time when my kids were little. Emotions were high. I would blast some music and we would just dance around the living room and everybody would be happy and giggling within minutes. Or, after dinner and everybody's tired and cranky from a long day, just blasting some music. And we still do this every time we call them cleanup days, where we'll just deal with all the clutter that's hanging around our house and we'll blast some music and everybody's singing along. And it just creates that connection. It creates an environment of peace and it really promotes you just unity within the home. Healthy boundaries, we already talked about that, but that can be especially helpful if it's your spouse or your kids and you maybe have extended family that doesn't understand boundaries and they're learning boundaries. And so just being that extra support person, if it's your own family, helping set and enforcing those boundaries and not putting it all on the person that struggles with anxiety can be really helpful. Uncluttered spaces, believe it or not, the more cluttered in an environment it is, the more it acts like little weights on the nervous system and everything kind of pulls on the brain and the body. And so having cleanup days together as a family, we do this often. None of us are great. We're all a little bit of visual people. So things often don't get put away on a regular basis at my house, but we try to regularly do it as a team. So it's not just falling on one person. And then any type of sensory stimulation, you'll just want to make sure you limit that. So in my home, everyone's a little bit sensory sensitive and we all have our own, but just respecting that. So if someone is watching videos or something on their phone at our house, you're required to have headphones. If somebody is doing something that's loud or, is going to annoy other people in the home, we really try to respect that and just making sure that the overstimulation isn't stimulating the other members of our family. And so just being conscious that overstimulation from external noises can be a real thing. And so limiting that and respecting family members that ask that to be limited is really helpful too. So these are just a handful of things that you can do that help promote that safety and trust within somebody that has anxiety. I want to stress again, it is absolutely not your job to fix it, but you can work to be a really good support person and love that person really, really well as they learn to navigate it. And healing from anxiety and dysregulation is absolutely possible. The Lord has set me free in so many areas, and He continues to show me patterns that I've had since I was just a really little kid, and how to undo them and how continue to grow and how continue to model this for my kids, for my spouse, for all my listeners out there, for all my clients. And so know that this is just, it's a journey, and it's not going to be flipped overnight, but you can make small changes that promote that feelings of safety within your health and your home. So see you next time.